The rain hammered against the coffee shop window, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding in my chest. I sat across from Ellie, her blonde hair catching the glow of the pendant light above, and wondered if she could hear my heart screaming. I'd loved her for 2 years, but tonight, I was about to ruin everything by telling her the truth. My name is Riley Carter, a 22-year-old art major with a penchant for flannel and overthinking. Ellie Thompson, my best friend since freshman year, was everything I wasn't: poised, confident, and, as she'd told me countless times, definitely straight. We'd met at a college orientation in Portland, Oregon, bonding over late-night study sessions and shared playlists. She was the sun to my stormy sky, and I'd spent 2 years hiding the fact that every laugh, every touch, every glance she gave me set my world on fire. Tonight, in this cozy coffee shop on the edge of town, I decided to confess. The air smelled of roasted beans and rain-soaked coats, and the hum of conversation around us felt like a cocoon, shielding me from the world's judgment. But nothing could shield me from the risk I was about to take. I clutched my mug, the ceramic warm against my trembling hands, and tried to find the words. "Ellie," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. Her green eyes flicked up from her latte, curious and unguarded. "There's something I need to tell you." She tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "You look like you're about to confess to a crime, Ree. What's up?" I laughed, but it came out shaky. "Not a crime. Just something I've been carrying for a while." My throat tightened, and I cursed myself for not rehearsing this better. "I like you. Like really like you. More than a friend." The words hung between us, heavy as the rain outside. Ellie's smile faltered, and for a moment the world stopped. I braced for rejection, for the awkward pity I'd seen in movies, for the end of our friendship. Her fingers tightened around her mug, and she looked down, her brows knitting together. "Riley," she said softly, and I knew that tone. It was the one she used when she was about to let someone down gently. "I'm straight. You know that. I mean, I love you, but not like that." My heart sank, a stone plummeting into a dark well. I nodded, forcing a smile that felt like a lie. "Yeah, I figured. Just had to get it off my chest." She reached across the table, her hand brushing mine. "You're my best friend. This doesn't change that, okay?" I wanted to believe her, but the ache in my chest told me otherwise. We finished our coffee in near silence, the weight of my confession pressing down on us. When we left, the rain had stopped, but the air felt colder. I walked her to her car, and as she hugged me goodbye, I memorized the feel of her arms, knowing it might be the last time. The next week was torture. Ellie acted like nothing had happened, texting me memes and inviting me to movie nights, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd broken something irreparable. I avoided her, claiming I was swamped with art projects, but the truth was I couldn't face her. Not when every glance reminded me of what I couldn't have. Then on a chilly Thursday evening, everything changed. I was sketching in my dorm, the room lit only by a desk lamp, when my phone buzzed. It was Ellie. "Meet me at the pier. 8 p.m. Don't ask, just come." Curiosity outweighed my fear, and I grabbed my jacket, heading to the waterfront. The pier was quiet, the ocean lapping gently against the posts. Ellie stood at the end, her silhouette framed by the fading sunset. She turned as I approached, her expression unreadable. "Ree," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been thinking about what you said." My heart lurched. "Ellie, you don't have to." "No, let me finish." She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "I said I was straight because that's what I've always told myself. But when you told me how you felt, it scared me. Not because I don't care about you, but because I realized I might feel something too." I froze, my breath catching. "What are you saying?" She took a shaky breath, then reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. "I'm saying I don't know what I am, but I know I can't stop thinking about you. And I don't want to lose you." Before I could process her words, she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft, hesitant, like she was testing the waters of her own heart. My world tilted, and for a moment nothing else existed. Just her lips on mine, the salt air, and the wild hope blooming in my chest. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide, searching mine. "Was that okay?" she whispered. I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. More than okay. We stood there, hands entwined, the ocean whispering secrets around us. I didn't know what this meant for us, but for the first time I felt like we had a chance. Maybe not a fairy tale, but something real, something worth fighting for. The days after that kiss felt like walking on a tightrope, thrilling, terrifying, and utterly fragile. Ellie and I didn't talk about it, not directly, but every glance, every brush of her hand against mine, carried a new weight. We were stepping into uncharted territory, and I wasn't sure either of us knew the map. Portland's autumn was in full swing, leaves crunching underfoot as we walked through campus together. Ellie had always been the planner, the one with a color-coded calendar, but now she seemed unsteady, like she was rewriting her own rules. I caught her staring at me during a lecture, her pen tapping nervously against her notebook, and my heart did a somersault. Was she regretting the kiss? Or was she, like me, replaying it in her mind? One afternoon we ended up at a park near the Willamette River, sitting on a bench with takeout tacos. The air was crisp, and Ellie's cheeks were pink from the cold. She hadn't mentioned the pier since that night, and I was too scared to bring it up. But as we ate, she broke the silence. "Ree, do you ever feel like you're, I don't know, betraying who you're supposed to be?" Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the rustle of leaves. I swallowed a bite of taco, my stomach twisting. "What do you mean?" She looked out at the river, her fingers fidgeting with the foil wrapper. "Like I've always known who I am. Small-town girl, good grades, straight, destined for a stable job and a picket fence. But now," she glanced at me, her eyes raw. "Now I'm questioning everything." I wanted to reach for her, to tell her it was okay to question, but fear held me back. "You don't have to have it all figured out," I said carefully. "Nobody does." She nodded, but her expression was troubled. "My family, they wouldn't get this. My mom's already planning my wedding to some hypothetical guy. If I told her I kissed a girl," she trailed off, shaking her head. The words stung, not because they surprised me, but because they echoed my own fears. My parents were supportive when I came out at 16, but Ellie's family was different, traditional, religious, the kind who saw love like ours as a sin. I'd known that from the start, but hearing it from her made it real. "Do you regret it?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Her eyes snapped to mine. "No. God, no. It's just complicated." Complicated became our unspoken mantra. We started spending more time together, but it was different now, charged with possibility and fear. We'd study in her dorm, our knees brushing under the table, and I'd catch her smiling at me in a way that made my pulse race. But she never kissed me again, and I didn't push. I was too afraid of scaring her away. One night we went to a campus poetry slam, the kind of event Ellie usually dragged me to. The room was packed, the air thick with cigarette smoke and nervous energy. A poet took the stage, a woman with a buzz cut and a voice like thunder, reciting lines about loving against the odds. I felt Ellie's hand slip into mine under the table, her fingers trembling. I squeezed back, my heart soaring, but when the poem ended, she let go. Afterward, we walked back to her dorm, the streets quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. "That poet," Ellie said suddenly. She made it sound so fearless. "Loving who you want." "It can be," I said, hoping my voice didn't betray my longing. "But it's not always easy." She stopped walking, turning to face me. The streetlight cast shadows across her face, and for a moment she looked like she might cry. "I'm scared, Ree. I don't know how to do this. But I don't want to stop feeling whatever this is." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Then don't. We'll figure it out together." She nodded, and for a second I thought she might kiss me again. But instead she hugged me, her arms tight around my shoulders. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was enough for now. The next week things got messy. Ellie's older sister, Claire, was visiting from Seattle. Claire was a carbon copy of their mom, judgmental, polished, and fiercely protective of the family's image. When Ellie invited me to dinner with them, I hesitated but agreed, hoping to prove I was still just her best friend. The restaurant was upscale, all white tablecloths and candlelight. Claire sized me up the moment I sat down, her smile tight. "So Riley," she said, cutting into her steak, Ellie says you're an artist. That's unconventional. I forced a laugh. Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5, but it's what I love. Ellie shot me a supportive glance, but Claire's eyes narrowed. Ellie's always been drawn to creative types. But she needs stability, you know? Someone grounded. The subtext was clear and it cut deep. I excused myself to the bathroom, my hands shaking as I splashed water on my face. When I returned, Ellie was arguing with Claire in hushed tones. I caught fragments. None of your business and just friends, and my stomach churned. Later, as we walked to the car, Ellie grabbed my arm. I'm sorry about her. She's just protective. It's fine, I lied. But is that what you told her? That we're just friends? Ellie's silence was answer enough. I pulled away, the night air cold against my skin. I can't keep pretending, Ellie. Not if this is real. She reached for me, but I stepped back. I need time, I said, and walked away, my heart breaking with every step. The weeks that followed were a blur of avoidance and ache. I threw myself into my art, painting feverishly in the campus studio. Each brushstroke a release for the pain I couldn't voice. Ellie's texts piled up. Apologies, memes, invitations to hang out. But I replied sparingly, guarding my heart from further damage. Portland's winter was creeping in, the air sharp with the promise of frost. I avoided our usual haunts, the coffee shop, the pier, the library where we'd spent countless nights. But Ellie was persistent. One evening she showed up at my dorm, her cheeks flushed from the cold, her eyes pleading. Riley, please, she said, standing in my doorway. Can we talk? I let her in, my resolve crumbling. My room was a mess of sketchbooks and paint tubes, a reflection of my inner chaos. She sat on my bed, looking small and uncertain, nothing like the confident Ellie I knew. I messed up, she said, her voice breaking. I panicked with Claire. I didn't know how to explain us, but I hate this distance between us. I crossed my arms, protecting myself. You told her we're just friends. After everything. I know. She stood, stepping closer. I was scared. My family, they're not like yours. They cut me off, but I'm done hiding. I want to try this. With you. Her words hit like a tidal wave, washing away my defenses. I wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered. What's changed? I asked. Why now? She took a deep breath, her eyes steady. Because I'm falling for you. And I can't keep pretending I'm not. My heart stuttered. Before I could respond, she closed the distance between us and kissed me, fiercer than at the pier, like she was staking a claim. I melted into her, the world fading until it was just us, tangled in a moment that felt like salvation. We spent the rest of the night talking, unraveling the mess of our fears and hopes. Ellie admitted she'd been researching, reading stories online about women who discovered their sexuality later in life. I thought I was straight because it was easier, she said, her head resting on my shoulder. But you make me feel things I've never felt before. I traced circles on her hand, my heart full. We don't have to rush. We can take it slow. She nodded, but her smile was radiant. Slow sounds perfect. For a while it was. We fell into a rhythm. Secret dates at hole-in-the-wall diners, late-night walks where we'd hold hands under the cover of darkness. Ellie was cautious, but she was trying, and every small gesture felt like a victory. She'd slip me notes in class, doodled hearts with our initials, and I'd blush like a teenager. But the world wasn't as kind as our bubble. One weekend we went to a queer art exhibit downtown. A bold move for Ellie. The gallery was vibrant, filled with paintings and sculptures celebrating love in all its forms. I was admiring a piece, a swirling abstract of two women embracing, when I noticed Ellie tense beside me. What's wrong? I whispered. She nodded toward the entrance. Claire was there, her arms crossed, her expression a mix of shock and disapproval. My stomach dropped. Ellie hadn't told her we were coming here, but Claire must have seen her posts on social media. Ellie, Claire said, striding over. What is this? Ellie's face paled, but she squared her shoulders. I'm here with Riley. We're together. The word hung in the air, a fragile declaration. Claire's eyes flicked to me, cold and accusing. This isn't you, Ellie. You're not like this. I felt Ellie's hand tighten in mine, and I squeezed back, silently urging her to stand her ground. "You don't get to decide who I am," Ellie said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I love her." Claire's face hardened. "You're throwing away your future for a phase. Mom and Dad will never accept this." Ellie flinched, but she didn't back down. "Then that's their loss." Claire stormed out, leaving a chill in her wake. Ellie turned to me, tears in her eyes but a defiance set to her jaw. "I meant it," she said. "I love you." I pulled her into a hug, my heart swelling. "I love you too." But the fallout was swift. By the next day, Ellie's phone was blowing up with texts from her parents. Claire's doing, no doubt. They demanded she come home to Eugene for a talk. Ellie was shaken, but she refused to go. "I'm not ready to face them," she told me, her voice small. "Not yet." I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the judgment I knew was coming. But I also knew this was her battle, and all I could do was stand by her. We spent the evening in my dorm, watching old rom-coms and pretending the world wasn't closing in. The next morning, Ellie got a call from her mom. I sat beside her, holding her hand as she listened, her face crumpling with every word. When she hung up, she was trembling. "They're cutting me off," she whispered. "No tuition, no support. They said I'm a disappointment." I pulled her close, anger and helplessness warring inside me. "You're not a disappointment. You're brave. And we'll figure this out." She nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel her fear. I was scared too, not just for her but for us. Could our love survive this storm? The weeks after Ellie's family cut her off were a test of everything we were. She moved out of her dorm unable to afford it, and crashed on my couch, her life reduced to a duffel bag and a forced smile. I watched her struggle to keep up her grades while picking up shifts at a bookstore, her pride refusing my offers to help with rent. Portland's gray skies mirrored our mood. We'd steal moments of joy, cooking cheap pasta in my tiny kitchen, laughing over spilled sauce, but the weight of her family's rejection hung over us. Ellie didn't talk about it much, but I saw it in the way her eyes dimmed when she checked her phone, hoping for a message that never came. One night, as we lay on my bed, the rain tapping against the window, she broke the silence. "Do you think I'm making a mistake?" Her voice was small, vulnerable. "Choosing us over them?" I turned to face her, my heart aching. "You're not choosing me over them. You're choosing yourself. And I'm here no matter what." She kissed me then, slow and deliberate, like she was anchoring herself to me. It was different from our first kisses, less hesitant, more certain. I held her close, wishing I could take away her pain, but knowing all I could offer was my love. The next challenge came from an unexpected place. My art professor, Ms. Delgado, announced a juried exhibition with a scholarship prize, enough to cover a semester's tuition. I poured everything into my submission, a series of paintings inspired by Ellie. Bold colors, swirling emotions, love and fear intertwined. When I told Ellie, she grinned, her old spark returning. "You're gonna win, Ree. I know it." The night of the exhibition, Ellie insisted on coming, even after a double shift. She wore a borrowed dress, her hair swept up, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with critiques and champagne flutes. My paintings hung in a corner, drawing a small crowd. Miss Delgado pulled me aside, her eyes gleaming. "Riley, these are extraordinary. You've got a real shot." Ellie beamed beside me, her hand brushing mine. But as we mingled, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd, Claire. She was staring at my paintings, her expression unreadable. My stomach twisted. Had she come to cause trouble? "Ellie," I whispered, nodding toward her sister. Ellie's face paled, but she squared her shoulders and walked over, me trailing behind. "Claire," Ellie said, her voice steady. "What are you doing here?" Claire's eyes flicked to me, then back to Ellie. "I heard about the exhibition. I didn't know it was this." She gestured to my paintings, which clearly depicted two women in love. "Is this how you see her?" Ellie hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, it's how I feel." Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't lash out. "I told Mom and Dad you're serious about this. They're struggling, but I'm trying to understand." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Ellie's eyes softened, and she reached for my hand. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. Claire left soon after, but the encounter left us shaken. Later, as we sat on a bench outside the gallery, Ellie leaned against me. I didn't expect her to show up. Maybe there's hope. I kissed her forehead. One step at a time. The exhibition results came a week later. I won the scholarship, a lifeline for my own tuition struggles. Ellie threw her arms around me, laughing through tears. I told you, Ree. You're unstoppable. But our joy was short-lived. Ellie's bookstore cut her hours, and the stress of juggling school and bills was wearing her down. One night I found her crying over her laptop, a rejection email from a scholarship she'd applied for glowing on the screen. I can't do this, she sobbed. I'm dragging you down with me. You're not, I said fiercely, kneeling beside her. We're in this together, remember? She shook her head, her voice breaking. You deserve someone who's not a mess. Someone whose family doesn't hate them for who they love. Her words cut deeper than I'd expected. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to meet my eyes. I love you, Ellie. Mess and all. Don't you dare give up on us. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, and we held each other until the room felt less heavy. But her doubt lingered, a shadow we couldn't shake. As winter deepened, we decided to fight back. I helped Ellie apply for more scholarships and a work-study program, and we started a crowdfunding page for her tuition. The queer community on campus rallied around us, sharing the link and donating what they could. It wasn't enough to solve everything, but it was a start. One evening, as we worked on her applications, Ellie looked at me, her eyes bright with something new. You know what? I'm done being scared. I want to tell our story, our real story. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She grinned, a hint of her old fire returning. Let's make a zine. About us, about love, about fighting for who you are. We'll sell it at the next queer art fair. The idea lit a spark in me. We spent the next week sketching and writing, pouring our hearts into a small booklet that told our story raw, messy, and true. It was terrifying, but it felt right, like we were claiming our place in the world. The zine was our rebellion, a tangible piece of us we could hold up to the world. We called it Rewritten Rules. Its pages filled with my sketches and Ellie's words, weaving our love story with raw honesty. The queer art fair was in a community center downtown, a vibrant chaos of booths and music. We set up our table, nerves buzzing, our zine stacked neatly beside a jar for donations. Ellie was radiant that day, her laughter cutting through my anxiety. What if no one buys one? I whispered, eyeing the crowd. Then we'll give them away, she said, squeezing my hand. This isn't about money. It's about us. People stopped by, drawn by my colorful cover art. A silhouette of two women against a sunset, hands entwined. A non-binary student bought the first copy, their eyes lighting up as they read Ellie's opening poem about finding courage in love. Others followed, some sharing their own stories, others just smiling and slipping a few bucks into the jar. By the end of the day, we'd sold out, and the jar was heavy with crumpled bills. This is unreal, I said, counting the cash as we packed up. We made enough to cover your books for next semester. Ellie's grin was electric. We did this, Ree. Together. That night, we celebrated with cheap wine and takeout, sprawled on my dorm floor. Ellie raised her plastic cup, her eyes gleaming. To us. To love that doesn't give up. I clinked my cup against hers, my heart full. To rewriting the rules. But the high didn't last. A week later, Ellie got a letter from her parents, forwarded from her old dorm address. We sat on my bed as she opened it, her hands trembling. The words were cold, formal. They were giving her one last chance to come to her senses and return home, or they'd cut contact permanently. Ellie stared at the letter, her face unreadable. They think I'm confused, she said finally. Like this, you are just a phase. I reached for her, but she pulled away, standing to pace the room. What if they're right? What if I'm throwing away my family for something I don't even understand? Her words stung, but I kept my voice steady. Do you love me? She stopped, her eyes meeting mine. More than anything. Then that's real, I said. Not a phase. Not a mistake. It's us. She sank back onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. I just wish it didn't hurt so much. I held her then, letting her cry, wishing I could fix it but knowing all I could do was stay. The next day, she wrote a response to her parents, her pen shaking as she poured out her truth. She was in love, she was happy, and she wasn't coming home to a life that didn't fit her anymore. She mailed it before she could change her mind. The waiting was agony. Days passed with no reply, and Ellie grew quieter, her smiles forced. I tried to keep her spirits up, dragging her to art shows and open mic nights, but the silence from her family was a wound that wouldn't heal. Then one snowy afternoon we got a surprise. Claire showed up at the coffee shop where we were studying, her expression softer than I'd ever seen. "Can I sit?" she asked. Ellie nodded, wary. Claire set a small envelope on the table. "Mom and Dad read your letter. They're not ready to accept this. But I am." Inside the envelope was a check, enough to cover Ellie's rent for a few months. Claire's eyes were wet. "I don't understand everything, but I see how happy you are with Riley. I don't want to lose my sister." Ellie hugged her, tears streaming down her face. I stood back, my own eyes stinging, grateful for this small bridge across the chasm. With Claire's support, Ellie found her footing. She got a better job at a local queer bookstore, and we moved into a tiny apartment together, our first real home. It was cramped and drafty, but it was ours. We painted the walls with murals, danced in the kitchen to old records, and fell asleep tangled together, the world outside fading away. But life wasn't done testing us. My scholarship was a one-time deal, and my own tuition bills were looming. Ellie insisted we could make it work, but I saw the worry in her eyes. One night, as we brainstormed ways to afford next semester, she had an idea. "Let's do another zine," she said, her voice bright with determination. "But bigger. We'll pitch it to local bookstores, maybe even online. Our story resonated with people. Let's keep telling it." I loved her fire, but I was skeptical. "You think we can pull that off?" She grinned, pulling me close. "With you? I can do anything." We spent weeks on the new zine, still rewriting, diving deeper into our journey. Ellie's struggle with her family, my fears of losing her, our fight to build a life together. The work was exhausting but cathartic, a way to process the chaos and claim our narrative. When we pitched it to the bookstore where Ellie worked, they loved it, offering to sell it and host a launch event. The launch was a whirlwind. Friends, classmates, and strangers packed the bookstore, their support overwhelming. Ellie read a passage aloud, her voice steady and proud, and I felt like my heart might burst. We were building something. Not just a zine but a community, a testament to love that refused to be silenced. The success of Still Rewriting was a lifeline, but it didn't solve everything. The money from sales helped with rent, but my tuition loomed like a storm cloud. Ellie and I were scraping by, our days a blur of classes, work, and stolen moments of joy. Yet every time I looked at her, laughing over breakfast or sketching beside me, I knew we were worth the fight. Spring brought a tentative warmth to Portland, the city blooming with possibility. We'd settled into our apartment, its walls covered in our art, a testament to our shared dreams. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Ellie was still waiting for a response from her parents, and my financial aid application was stuck in limbo. We didn't talk about it, but the uncertainty was a weight we both carried. One evening, as we walked along the waterfront, Ellie stopped, her hand in mine. What if we don't make it? What if this is too hard?" Her words hit like a punch. I turned to face her, the river glinting behind us. "It's hard because it's real. But I'd rather fight for this than have something easy without you." She smiled, but it was fragile. "I just don't want to let you down." "You never could," I said, pulling her close. The wind carried the scent of cherry blossoms, and for a moment, we were just two women in love, the world's demands fading away. But reality was relentless. A week later, I got an email from the financial aid office. My application was denied. The news hit like a sledgehammer. I sat on our couch staring at the screen, my dreams of finishing my degree slipping away. Ellie found me there, her face falling as I told her. We'll find a way, she said, her voice fierce. We always do. I wanted to believe her, but despair was creeping in. What if we can't? What if I have to drop out? She knelt in front of me, her hands on my knees. Then we'll figure out what's next. Together. You're not alone in this. Her words pulled me back from the edge. We spent the night brainstorming more zines, freelance art gigs, even a part-time job for me at the bookstore. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a start. Ellie's determination was infectious, and I found myself daring to hope again. The next challenge came from within our circle. Our friend Jamie, who'd been a rock through everything, invited us to a queer community potluck. It was a warm evening, the park filled with laughter and music. We brought our zines, hoping to share our story, but not everyone was welcoming. A woman named Tara, a vocal activist in the group, pulled us aside. I read your zine, she said, her tone sharp. It's sweet, but it's naive. You're painting this rosy picture of love conquering all, but what about the real fight? The systemic stuff? Ellie bristled. We're telling our truth. That's enough. Tara shook her head. It's not just about you two. You're profiting off a narrative without addressing the bigger picture. Her words stung, and I saw doubt flicker in Ellie's eyes. On the way home she was quiet, her hands stuffed in her pockets. Do you think she's right? She asked finally. Are we being selfish? I thought about it, the weight of her question settling in. Maybe we're focused on us, but that's our story. It doesn't mean we're ignoring the bigger fight. We're just living it our way. Ellie nodded, but I could tell Tara's words had shaken her. The next day, she suggested adding a section to our next zine about the broader queer community, highlighting resources and stories beyond our own. I loved her for it, her willingness to grow, to listen even when it hurt. As we worked on the new zine, Ellie got a surprise. A letter from her dad. It wasn't warm, but it was a step, acknowledging her letter, asking to meet. She was torn, hope warring with fear. What if he just wants to lecture me? She said, pacing our apartment. Then you set boundaries, I said. But you don't have to do it alone. I'll go with you. She agreed, and we drove to Eugene, my stomach in knots. Her dad met us at a diner, his face lined with tension. The conversation was stilted, full of awkward pauses, but he listened as Ellie spoke about her life, her love for me, her dreams. He didn't embrace us, but he didn't reject her either. I need time, he said finally. But I don't want to lose you. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. On the drive back, Ellie was quiet, processing. I thought I'd feel more resolved, she said. But it's a start, right? Right, I said, squeezing her hand. One step at a time. Back in Portland, we threw ourselves into the new zine, determined to make it a love letter to our community. The launch was set for a summer festival, and as the date approached, we felt the weight of our story's impact. We were no longer just two women in love. We were part of something bigger, a tapestry of resilience and hope. The summer festival was electric, Portland's streets alive with color and music. Our booth for Rewritten Rules, Volume 2 was swarmed, the new zine a hit with its blend of our story and voices from the queer community. Ellie glowed as she handed out copies, her confidence a far cry from the hesitant girl who'd kissed me on the pier a year ago. I watched her, my heart swelling with pride and love, knowing we'd built this together. But life, as always, had one more curveball. A week before the semester started, I got an unexpected email. A local gallery wanted to feature my paintings in a solo show, with a cash prize that could cover my tuition. The catch? I'd need to produce new work in a month, alongside my classes and job. Ellie didn't hesitate. You're doing this, she said, her eyes fierce. I'll handle the zine sales. You focus on your art. Her belief in me was a lifeline. I dove into painting, my canvases filled with our journey. Love, loss, resilience. Ellie was my muse, her strength woven into every stroke. She'd bring me coffee during late-night studio sessions, her presence a quiet anchor. One night, as I cleaned my brushes, she wrapped her arms around me from behind. You're incredible, Ree. This show's gonna change everything. The gallery opening was a whirlwind. Friends, professors, and strangers filled the space, their voices humming over my paintings. Ellie stood beside me, her hand in mine, her smile brighter than the gallery lights. When the curator announced I'd won the prize, the room erupted in applause, but all I saw was Ellie, tears in her eyes, whispering, "I knew you could do it." The prize covered my tuition, and with Ellie's bookstore job stabilizing, we finally felt like we could breathe. But the real victory was us, our love tested and tempered stronger for it. That night we celebrated on our apartment's tiny balcony, the city skyline twinkling below. Ellie raised her glass, her voice soft. To us. To love that fights. I clinked my glass against hers, my heart full. To forever. Months later we got another surprise. A letter from Ellie's mom. It was short but heartfelt, an olive branch after months of silence. She wanted to visit, to try understanding. Ellie was cautious but hopeful, and we planned a meeting on neutral ground, a park near campus. Her mom arrived, nervous but open, and for the first time, Ellie introduced me as her girlfriend without fear. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, a crack in the wall that had separated them. As we walked home, Ellie squeezed my hand. "I didn't think we'd get here," she said. "Not with my family, not with us. But we did." I smiled, pulling her close. Because we didn't give up. Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, painful, and real, full of doubts and triumphs. But it was ours. We kept making zines, each one a testament to our growth, our love, our community. We faced new challenges, bills, exams, the occasional argument, but we faced them together, our hands entwined, our hearts aligned. One evening as we sat on our couch, Ellie turned to me, her eyes soft. "You changed everything, Ree. That night on the pier you made me brave." I kissed her, slow and sure. "You were always brave. I just helped you see it." Our love wasn't perfect, but it was true. And in a world that often tried to tear us apart, that was enough. We'd rewritten the rules not just for ourselves, but for anyone who dared to love against the odds. Our story was a beacon, a reminder that love in all its forms was worth fighting for. As I looked at Ellie, her laughter filling our tiny apartment, I knew we'd keep fighting, keep loving, keep rewriting. Together we were unstoppable.